Good afternoon. We'll go ahead and call this Metropolitan Planning Organization RGVMPO meeting, call it to order. It is now 1:31. Item 2, roll call.
Good afternoon. Roll call. Cameron County. Hidalgo County. Stark County. City of Brownsville. City of McAllen. City of Edinburgh. City of Mission. City of Harlingen. Okay. City of FAR. City of San Benito. Cameron County RMA. Hidalgo County RMA. Valley Metro.
Present.
TESDOT. We have quorum. Brownsville. Okay.
All right. Well, good afternoon. Thank you for everybody showing up today. Item number 3, public comments.
None that I'm aware of, sir.
Nothing online or anything? Okay. All right. We'll move on to item number 4, consent agenda. You have item number 1, approval of the minutes. They were included in your packet. Are there any revisions, changes, edits? There being none, I would entertain a motion. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 2, discussion on draft 2024 UTP allocation for Category 7 funding. Mr. Zamora.
Thank you, Chairman. And good afternoon to all our board members. So, beginning with slide 1, this information was shared with us by the Transportation Planning and Programming Division from TxDOT. These are the numbers that we've developed after analyzing the draft 2024 UTP allocation. As you can see, the total amount at the top in comparison to where we are currently programmed with our, if you take a look at and take in consideration the tip years, which is our short range plan from 2023 to 2026, beginning in fiscal year 2024, the new UTP will run all the way to fiscal year 2033. So what we currently have programmed versus the allocation at the top, the pending functional classification is in reference to projects that have already been approved by this policy board. However, those projects that are pending functional classification will not show the Category 7 funding currently on both our short-range and long-range planning documents. So that number, in combination with what we do currently have programmed on both documents, gives us our total approved amount. Under the balance, that is the difference from what we have approved. So if you combine the currently programmed amount along with what's pending functional classification, we get our total approved amount by this policy board, and we compare that to the allocation that was given to us as a draft from Transportation Planning and Programming from TxDOT, and that is where you'll see the negative 76.66 balance. Now, the unobligated funds portion of this summary is what we currently do not have as a federal transaction for projects that have been approved for programming. So fiscal year 2023 that we're currently in now, we have a listing of projects, and if I could share this screen with you and we'll go back and forth. This is the beginning here where you'll see fiscal year 2023 projects. These projects are currently programmed with Category 7 assigned to them, and it's utilized to show you which projects have not obligated funds yet. So our federal transaction reports that we receive, and I apologize for going back and forth, but just so that I can reference what it is that I'm talking about. The federal transaction report is actually included in the packet, and it's to show as an example what we receive monthly. So as of February the 28th of this year was our last federal transaction report that we received, and that's where we were given this negative balance. Not negative balance, I apologize, the unobligated amount that you see there at the bottom. So that unobligated amount is what's contributed to projects that have not actually fulfilled the federal transaction part of the project. So just in summary, that describes this first screen here. Before moving forward to the next page, which will be the Delta page, and the difference between last year's UTP and this coming 2024, is there any questions about these totals here that I could answer at this time?
So Rudy, just to be clear, that green box, the unobligated funds, are projects that are in the mill but are not quite ready for letting, so we haven't received the federal approval, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Thank you, and I appreciate that for clarification. Go ahead, yes, Mayor.
Mr. Chair, I just had a quick question. So I know I see the reason for the negative balance, right?
Yes,
But
sir.
is that pretty normal, customary, based on the allocations, or just curious on?
If members of the board remember last year when we were analyzing the 2023 UTP, we had a certain amount, and I can't say the exact amount because I don't have it in front of me right now, but it was very similar to what we have programmed currently from 24 to 2033. So previously it was 2023 to 2032. So that amount is what we have programmed and approved by this board on our long-range plan, on our short-range plan. At that time, the pending functional classification that we're referencing now today incorporates projects that were approved by the policy board. However, some of those projects are still pending functional classification, so until they go through that federal classification process, we cannot show those federal funds assigned to those projects. However, when that's complete, then those funds will be added and it'll contribute to what's been programmed on our long-range and short-range plan. So what we have is currently programmed as a total, what's pending, so what's also been approved by this board, the total approved amount, which incorporates the two, and the negative balance is if we take the total approved amount of 406 million and compare that to the allocation, the forecasted allocation, the draft amount for 2024, that's exactly where the negative 76 comes from.
Mayor, if I may, I think to part of your answer, I apologize if I'm wrong. In my tenure, I don't remember carrying quite such a large balance of a negative sorts in Category 7. We used to have Category 2. That was way back in the day before RMAs, and that was one of the things that led up with that. We could no longer carry that, but I think that was the gist of your question. And because I don't want to say with the organization, we're only 3.5 years old, but in my tenure, I don't recall quite carrying such a large negative balance.
Thank you, Andrew.
So if I may, Chair,
Sir, go ahead,
such
of
a
course.
large negative balance. So we are over-programmed. Once all this gets approved, we are over-programmed 76.66 million.
Part of the discussion today, and we hope will be over the next couple of months, and I don't want to steal too much thunder from Rudy because he's done an exemplary amount of work on this, is yes. And we're also mindful that taking into consideration that there is an allocation in year 32, that if the board really wanted to allocate the projects, the board of course can and will implement that. But that will bring up that negative balance to 100 million. And one of the observations that Rudy has made, which I think is dead on, that I would just ask everybody for consideration on as we work through this, we can certainly approve our 10-year with a negative $100 million, $77 million negative, and we can move forward if that's the will of the board. It's not a problem. Where it becomes problematic is as we start to advance to our tip years, we have projects that would want to move into tip who have no real money identified with them because they were brought in and carried a negative balance. That's where staff is a little perplexed on what we would do as we got closer in years on those projects. Because yes, we can allocate year 32, we can take $30 million and we can put it on 1 or 2 projects, that's not a problem. But as we advance, there's not actually any money on there because we're carrying a negative balance in the checkbook. So we couldn't move it into the tip years for any advancement. We would be unable to do so. Federal Highways would not approve our tip as those projects advance.
Yes, Andrew, I just wanted to set the stage because Rudy's about to get into those details. But I want to set that stage that folks, we are over-programmed, and we're not, typically, we don't do this. So we're gonna have to figure out a way to make sure that we get closer to the actual amount available.
Yeah, and we would just ask that everyone also keep in mind that a part of the negative balance is what the board approved funding that is allocated to the Harlingen-San Benito area. It's now $17 million that we agreed would be spent now because Harlingen-San Benito doesn't have any projects at the moment ready to go forward. We've met with Harlingen and San Benito. We know that there are projects that are going to be coming up in the works, but once they get projects ready, that's their sub-allocation by sub-region of funding that we need to keep them whole. And the policy board last year when we did this agreed that we would do that. So that is $17 million. I don't want to say additional, but it is a part of that negative balance that we have that is identified for that sub-region.
So if I may, just a few comments. First of all, I think that I mean, in principle, I think we all agree that the optics look bad when we see a large negative number and it continues to grow. You know, we need to get these, I think we're all aware that we need to get projects into the ground as quickly as possible, or at least get them to letting. So I think all of that, the burden of that is really everyone here at this table. But part of what our reports, or what we're going to do to move these projects forward, is have those quarterly updates. And I think that's an accountability mechanism for us to realign monies as we see that projects are advancing or not advancing. And I think, because I think the general consensus here is whether it's allocated to one entity or another, the message has been shovel-ready projects will be moved along because we don't want them to be. And there's going to be projects that we know don't have enough construction dollars. And we need to go get, make sure that those dollars are being used so that this negative number doesn't continue to grow, or we will continue to be on the radar for, our state reps, our leadership at TxDOT, all the people that are watching these numbers continue to go the wrong way. So I think we just have to be mindful as a group that our obligation is to make sure that we do our part to make sure that they are shovel-ready and they get to letting quickly. But hopefully this quarterly update, and I do think that just from a scoring perspective, we need to take a look at that because there's, I think, some grading numbers that need to be weighed a little bit differently for accomplishments and milestones within project development that are more significant than the others. And I think that maybe historically those criteria weren't used the way they're going to be used now. And we probably need to take a fresh set of eyes and make sure that those assessments, those rankings make sense. Because I have 2 shovel-ready projects, or close to, that have AFAs, that have right-of-way assignment and land that's getting purchased, and I'm scoring in the 30s. I mean, I'm a couple of years away from construction. I shouldn't be graded that low. So I want to make sure that we're all in agreement that the scoring and the metrics that we're looking at make sense, so that we can go back and actually assign these monies to projects. Which again, our responsibility, if we're not getting these projects and they're sitting on the books, we shouldn't be overly concerned that somebody's taking our money when we're not advancing them. So I think we just have to make sure that leadership in this room and at this table changes. Leadership at local levels change all the time. We just have to continue as organizations that we continue to advance these projects, or we're going to put ourselves in a tough situation with the state to justify that we deserve that extra money that we consolidated for. And if we don't aggregate ourselves to spending this money, then we're going to find ourselves in a tough situation in the next legislative session. I don't think it'll be any better if we see this number continue to go the wrong way.
The other thing is, how does inflation impact the $76 million? Where does that come in, and what does that do for projects that are in line that will be impacted? I mean, we've seen it, I know at the county level, like 30–40% increases in cost. A mile in county roads was $72,000, now it's up to $138, just for overlays.
Yes.
So what does that do to all these projects? Is that 76 number gonna hold? Is it viable to continue keeping all these projects online?
To address I'm trying to think long and hard, Commissioner, before I answer. To attempt to address the inflationary rate, we do have an inflation rate that is put onto our projects that are compounded for the projects that are outside our 4-year window. That inflationary rate has not kept up with real-world measures, and we're mindful of that. We're always ready to find additional fundings when possible or feasible to go to projects, but when we have our budget set as it is, I think that also gives a little credence to why this policy board, and of course can change it at any time, but this policy board maybe a year and a half ago, adopted a resolution that said, once your Category 7 allocation is granted, it holds at that number. And a part of that was to help motivate, when possible, some advancement of projects so those exterior forces didn't inflate the project so high that it became unreasonable for the local government. That sometimes didn't work out to be the case. And I have been contacted by some local governments who have said, you know, just what you're saying, Commissioner, we had a project that was $3 million in construction and now we're looking at, you know, $4.25 million. What can we do? And I can't sit at the table and say we can find $1.25 million because I need the guidance of the policy board over a situation like this. I will tell you that the internal conversations that Rudy, Luis, and I have had as far as this budget, I understand that there's $30 million available on year 32 on the out year. My recommendation would be that we do nothing with it. I can't see backfilling projects into a document that's going to put us in a bigger number. Now, I think I hope, I should say it that way, a part of that resolve will be exactly what the commissioner said. We have this project readiness work group. We're asking everybody to come together quarterly to provide us real-world updates of where these projects are. I am mindful there's some criteria that we need to re-examine that was voted on and approved, but we have an opportunity because we have some measures with right-of-way maybe scoring the same as sidewalks in some areas, and that's not fair. Right-of-way acquisition is a much heavier burden to carry, so that should be awarded differently than putting in sidewalks. And we're not waiting, but at the same time, we also have a consulting firm that we brought on board to help us with our performance measures to assure that the ones that we're going to use in the future will be the best laid plan moving forward. So we have several paths that we're moving on at the same time. And I hope I answer your question, Commissioner, but that's where we are from the staff side of things.
But you're gonna put a terrible burden on the local governments when they have to find this extra millions of dollars. You're not talking about 100,000 or a couple 100,000 to try to meet that gap.
I agree 100%, Commissioner. I think it's an incredible burden. At the same time, I have a checkbook that has zero. And until we sit down, and I think what's very telling is on the one slide that Rudy had for us with the blue and the orange, not that one, the table of the projects that were been on the books for a little bit. Keep going. That one. You'll see on here that we have projects that have funding identified with them, and some of them have been moved and holding since 2019. And we provide this information. So we seek the guidance from the policy board because I understand, or I try to be very empathetic to the situation that all of you have as elected officials as well. Nobody wants to sit at the table and say, you, City X, are not moving forward with your project. We need to take your money and put it over here on another project that is moving forward. I understand that. And we're empathetic to it. But at some point, to get to your comment, Commissioner, and you're right, I think we have to start looking at the scoring, the rankings. How long have they been in the chute? Are they moving forward? Is it being done? And if it's not, then those are conversations that we need to have. And then does that funding go to help cover overruns? Or does it go to provide for additional projects to come into the plan? And there's no simple answer to any of it, and it's multi-phased as we move along.
I don't think there will be a simple answer, but I think it's a flexible answer that it can meet both.
I don't disagree.
Yes, Roy.
So, briefly, can you remind us how we got to this negative number? But before you do that, aren't we talking about two different things here? The concern from the representative was
let me take the last one first, Roy. Both comments are factual. Both comments are factual because we don't have enough money for all the projects that we would like to move forward. And with the table that we showed you previously, we have tables that have fallen outside of our plan, projects that have fallen outside of our plan because they may be as far back as 2019 that are still tying up money that was identified by this board, but they haven't let yet. So it's twofold. Whereas if those projects had let, they would be off the books, we wouldn't have the carryover. Or if the board had selected to do something else with the funding, that funding could be used elsewhere. That's at the will of the policy board. So that answer is truthful on both. How we got to the negative was we were already carrying a negative $32 million balance approved by the policy board last year before we even got into this cycle. So once we got into this cycle, we already had a balance that was negative as we move forward. And then with the allocation that we had, which was not very much at all, if you back up to that one where you have it broken out by year, Rudy, there, go back.
Right here?
Yes, thank you. As you can see, it's minuscule, but the numbers for all the years actually went down, $12, $13, and when we break it out by sub-region, it's small numbers. So we are mindful of that. What comes into difficulty into play for us is that we have to, or unless the board tells us not to, we have projects out there that the board has allocated funding to for projects that have not yet received functional classification. So we have projects on the books in our 4-year horizon that's identified with local funding, and there's a gentleman's agreement, if you will, that once the functional classification is identified and received, we will take that local funding off, and there's federal funds that the board has approved, and we will honor that. That's the $51.72 million. Then on top of that, we do have the unobligated fund, which are those projects that have not yet let, even projects before 2023, and that's the $74 million. So when we compound these matters, we get into a situation where we're sitting at $76 million by the time we honor everything that we have. And I hope that that answered that. It's trying to simplify a math situation. It's not necessarily that simple, but having the $32 million to start with didn't make it any easier beginning out of the gate, if you will.
Chair, if I may, just to try and supplement that response by Andrew. Last year, we made a decision to basically program the forecasted 10-year, the $32 million más o menos. Let's program those projects. In addition to that, there was some discussion of additional $40 million that could potentially be programmed. So then that jumped up to 72, now it's 76 million that we are over programmed. And so if you look at that last line of 2033, there's $32.7 million that Andrew has stated that his recommendation would be not to program projects, and I personally will support that because we're already in the hole $76 million. And so the idea here is, how do we resolve this issue? We resolve this issue by getting the project shovel-ready, identifying what are the highest priority projects for the region. If we need to move projects around, I understand that that could be somewhat controversial, but the idea is we need to start spending the money, and we spend the money with projects that are shovel-ready. And so that's where this policy board has a tremendous obligation to prioritize and ensure that those projects are whole as far as funding is concerned. And so, yes, we have a couple of projects that are pending functional classification. Right now, we're using local dollars, if you will, as a placeholder, but eventually Cat 7 can help supplement that. I hope that didn't confuse matters anymore, but I'm just trying to help out paint that picture.
I agree with Pete. I think we need to spend money on projects that are ready, and then we heard that we'll get more money if we need it. But if we're not spending the money, we're not going to get more money.
I agree on all fronts. I just, as local leaders here, I guarantee you all of us are very reluctant to let go of money that's there. That could potentially be there, even if, it makes us go from 75 or 77 to 100. We want to try to commit those funds to projects that we know we need or that our communities need. So from the local leadership, I can say that we've got a different perspective, even though I might agree with you in principle in the sense that it doesn't make sense to go more negative because it's gonna hurt us at the higher levels where these monies actually get allocated, but it's really hard to pass up being able to put another project in the books because we know it's important, and we want to try to find a way to get there. That's my perspective on that. Any other comments? I know that there was a lot of discussion on that. Anything? I know we're not voting on anything, right? This is just all for informational purposes, but it's again to remind us that we have a lot of things to address in these next few months, from the budget perspective, from policy perspective, to a ranking perspective, to a funding perspective. And then we don't know what the legislature is going to do this year, but had we been in a better situation, maybe we would have been in a better position to ask for more money.
Andrew, we do have a workshop scheduled for May, is that correct? To do a follow-up.
Yes,
We had one in February,
Yes,
one in May.
to provide an update to the policy board in June.
Okay, and then two, it is imperative that we have the latest estimates, because the estimates are changing right now and on a regular basis. So we need to update the estimate, folks, on a regular basis to ensure that the decisions that this policy board is going to be making is based on the latest and greatest information.
And we will be asking for all that updated info going into the preparation for that project readiness work group.
So-
We see about a half day, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
No,
We see
no,
about a half day work group because the information is so intensive that we certainly don't want to hurry through it.
No, but let's get to a point where we truly have identified the projects that are ready to go so that we can allocate those monies, especially the ones that do not have enough funding,
Yes, sir.
and reallocate, reassess, and do whatever we have to minimize this carryover so we can continue to move forward. I'm sure that there's projects here that all of us sitting around the table are like, man, if I just had that extra $5 million to get my project to construction, then I'd be ready to go. So I think that in this next process, that needs to be a clear identifier within your review in working with us and making sure that we truly, truly know what's available.
Identify shovel-ready projects.
Exactly. Well, that's what this whole review is. But again, I go back to the scoring mechanism. That may not be entirely accurate when you're trying to figure out what truly is shovel-ready. Because like I said, I have projects in here, in this ranking, that are ranked at 38, 36 out of 150 or 100 points. I'm already acquiring right away. I have an AFA. I'm 2 years from letting. Once I finish the acquisition, I'm ready to go. How can I be scored at 38? That means that there's something inherently wrong with the way that it's scored, or maybe we just aren't truly getting a true assessment out of this that's going to tell us that something is shovel-ready. So I think we just have we have to go back and reassess and make sure that it truly reflects a shovel-ready status. So as the projects continue to get higher in scores, that we know that they're truly shovel-ready projects, and then we can allocate those dollars to those projects.
Yeah, I would just, one last comment, in looking at all the lists and everything, I would ask, and of course, I'm gonna do that, at least in our city, but just to evaluate those high-priority areas in our, all our areas that continue to grow very rapidly, let's please assess those areas and see, if it's not in there, see how we can collaborate with neighboring cities or anything, because the growing traffic is real, in our areas, and we really need to look at those high traffic areas, high growth areas. That's so important, I think, from a big picture standpoint. And the other thing is, what's the date when this needs to be approved? 2024?
The UTP will be officially adopted by TxDOT in August, so.
So can
we'll
we
be
do
looking a month in advance of that to have our project listing complete.
So can we do a calendar, kind of like everybody does here with a budget, right? Everybody has a
Yes, sir.
budget calendar, and just kind of back into that so that we all know how we can work towards making sure it's approved in time and everybody assesses their projects.
So if we're doing quarterly updates, it's really just one more before we get to this ranking.
Or maybe we need to schedule more. I
Well-
guess that's my point.
Well,
yeah.
he's saying that we're gonna schedule a workshop in May and hopefully address some of these things.
Yeah.
And try to handle a lot of the issues that we're dealing with right now,
Okay.
because, set aside a few hours.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments?
Just to clarify,
Oh,
making
boy.
sure that everybody's on the same page.
Yes, sir.
TxDOT UTP is approved in August. In that UTP, project listing is for categories 2, 4, and 12. Category 7 is an allocation to this MPO, right? Or to the MPOs in general, right? And so the projects that are picked by the MPO is done at any point. We're gonna get an allocation approved in August, but as far as the projects, that's approved by this policy board.
I would like to note that we're currently under public involvement for the May quarterly revision cycle. There is our long-range MTP on our website available for review now, as well as a short-range tip, both of those tables, and as well as a transit tip for our transit providers. So those documents are available for review. We've already had one in-person public engagement at the McAllen Metro Transit Station. We have one scheduled in Starr County. We also have a location in Harlingen scheduled. So we will be making our in-person public engagement events, and those documents will remain on our website until it is approved later this month by this policy board. And that'll be for the May revision. And to reiterate what Mr. Alvarez was saying, the UTP does get adopted in August. There will be an August revision cycle as well. So we do have time to work on these projects. We have time to schedule meetings if necessary. If project update forms need to be redone and reevaluated, we would appreciate those updates, and we'll be contacting the local governments that we need that information from, because we do have some years in our long-range plan that need to be reevaluated, and we're aware that there's projects that may be further developed from where they were a year ago or the last time that we received an update. So just wanted to add that before we
Let's hope
conclude
so.
this item. Yes, sir.
If they haven't advanced in a year, then that's exactly what we're talking about right now.
And I'd be happy to address any other concerns over the material in this packet. I know it's a lot of numbers, it's a lot to look at, but for instance, this table here helps us analyze where we were going from the 2023 UTP to the new one. So it's not so much, like it was mentioned over the conversation here previously, that we're not addressing that 32,030,33, but if you compare one UTP draft to the one that we're currently in 2023, the amount was very small for 10 years in the increase. And what this table helps us see is, like Andrew was mentioning, that there's very little money that is being added to the 10 years, and you'll see where we've actually lost a little bit in forecasted allocation per fiscal year. So just so that nobody gets confused and we're not addressing that last year, because we do know that that's there, but when you're already over-programmed and you have projects programmed in the UTP years, we have to consider that. These tables here are projects that are currently programmed, as I mentioned earlier, with CAT 7 amounts, and also their scoring as well. And this table we developed to help monitor these projects that are currently in our TIP years that have unobligated funds and that have moved a little bit throughout the years, and that's why we wanted to place this in this packet as well for your review. So if there's any other questions, if not, that concludes my presentation for now.
Commissioner?
One quick question. Out of the 100 projects that are on there, right? That's what you said you narrowed the list down to? How many have had no movement in the last year?
I haven't narrowed any list, Commissioner. I don't know what that, I apologize, I'm not certain what that statement was. I don't narrow any
Didn't you make a
projects.
comment saying that there were 100 projects identified,
No, sir.
157? Was I the only one that heard that?
I don't know what 157 is.
In the listing that you showed us?
No, sir. I haven't narrowed anything down.
No?
I don't know what that number is.
So-
No,
Are you
sir.
talking about the projects that were scored?
Yes, the scored projects. I mean, David, you're talking about the,
Monday, yes, sir. I'm sorry.
right.
Oh, that was just overall ranking. No, but it was, the project score, like the maximum score you can get on a project
Right.
is was 140 or
right.
150. Now it's down to 100.
Right.
My project scored extremely low, even though
Even though it's almost ready to go.
they're almost there. And I've already pointed it out to them so that they can at least go back and start looking at it, getting some preliminary ideas about how to update this. Sorry about the confusion. I was,
Made me nervous, Commissioner.
That's just,
we can count on FAR to
okay.
tell us what's up. Okay, so that, I mean, I think Rudy's done with his,
Thank you, Rudy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, members of the
any
board.
further questions before he leaves? If not, okay, this was a no action item. Thank you, Rudy. We'll move on to item number 3, the local transportation planning project. Mr. Cantu.
Good afternoon, board members. Today I'm here to present the projects. Back in January, I came to the board and presented that there would be some fundings for planning programs or planning projects or studies to be done in our area. Since January, I presented again in March saying that the deadline for these submittals would be April 1st. Since then, we received 3 submittals, one from Weslaco with collaboration with Hidalgo County for the Weslaco Loop Planning Corridor. they said that the study would be 250,000 and they would contribute 25% coming to 62,000 of total 250. The other two studies are from in-house from the MPO that we plan to put on the UPWP as well, which is the MTP. That is our 25-year plan, our long-range plan that we have that we would like to get updated. And the other one was a rail passenger study that Javier would like to do for the region. The last time it was done was back in 2011 from Hidalgo County, and we would like to update that to see what is the possibility of having future passenger rail in our area.
What's your total budget for this?
So far, these are the estimates that we used last go around. Last go around, it was 300 and 250. So those are our estimates at the moment. We have not done any RFP or any of that stuff. So we don't have an actual price, but we're just basing it on the last go around that we did do these studies.
But what is your budget?
Our budget, usually our whole planning budget is $2 million a year, but that is our whole planning that we use in the entire office from other stuff that we do, other studies that we do. But for this, usually when we set aside, it's less than $1 million, so maybe 700 to $1 million.
Do you have a deadline for them for any other project submissions or consideration?
So in January, I did say April 1st was the deadline to submit, just because now I have to go and start making the UPWP. That has to be approved by the board before October, because once October comes, that's when the fiscal year starts again. So in June or July, I will be coming with the UPWP to ask for an approval.
Okay. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Item number 4, discussion of the IIJA infrastructure bill and grants submitted by the I'm guessing RGVMPO. Mr. Dominguez.
Yes, good afternoon, Transportation Policy Board members. For those of you who might not know, my name is Javier Dominguez. I'm here to talk to you about some of the grant applications that we submitted, as well as a new opportunity that we just recently found out about. So here you see a breakdown over the several grant applications that we submitted over the past year. The ones highlighted in green are grants that we were awarded. The ones in red were grants we were not awarded. And the one in purple is a grant that we're still pending notification. Down below, you will see how much we applied for in total and how much we've been awarded so far. The first one, the Texas Federal Land Access Program, our very own Eva Garcia, right behind me, applied for it and was awarded. It's a big kahuna for a total of $2.5 million. It is for a design environmental for a 20-mile multi-use trail. And the local match is also being provided by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Sorry. And so it's a great program. Eva's already been providing a lot of updates on it, and so we're looking forward to that. So congratulations and thank you. The next one is the Safe Streets and Roads for All, which I've come and spoken to you all about several times. We were awarded a $250,000 grant for a planning grant, $200,000 federal, $50,000 local. So we wanted to say thank you to all of our planning partners who did help and submitted a letter of commitment for that application. Just a little update on that grant. We are waiting to have the kickoff meeting with our partners at FHWA. We now have a contact at the Texas FHWA Division office, Mrs. Lisa Larson. So she will be sending a kickoff meeting invite, and with her help, we will have to develop the grant agreement. So they have told us that this process can take weeks, if not months. But once we get that grant agreement drafted and we get it approved by the FHWA, we will be sending out an invite for those of you at the policy as well as TAC to be a part of our infrastructure bill grant subcommittee, who will help us along with the consultants to develop this plan. And just a refresher, this is to select one of or several of the 28 proven safety countermeasures that they have identified in the program, which ones we want to identify that we feel are relevant to our area and we can implement, and hopefully complete this plan and apply for a future implementation grant. They just released a notice of funding opportunity in case anyone else wanted to apply for this next fiscal year, Safe Streets and Roads for All application. Obviously, we will be working on completing and starting our planning grant before applying for an implementation grant. But just in case anyone was interested, we wanted to let you know. And I believe the deadline is in June. So if anyone else is interested, there's also that other opportunity. Unfortunately, we did get notification that we did not get the Reconnecting Communities grant. It was for a corridor study along Business 83. And then we just found out also for the the Strengthening Mobility and Revolutionizing Transportation grant. But they did provide us some feedback. They loved the idea. They thought it was innovative. We wanted to look at how flood drainage technology can be utilized to also come up with a long-range plan for bicycle pedestrian infrastructure and kind of marrying the two together. So they loved the idea, but they did say we need a little umph, if you would say, on the technical aspect of it. So I'm trying to follow up and see exactly what are some of the technical aspects they're kind of hoping we can work and improve on for a future application. So that's just something we can work off of. And last but not least, here we have the areas of persistent poverty, which is through the Federal Transit Administration. We applied for $500,000. The local match is 10%. So again, thank you to our planning partners who helped us out. We went to the 3 counties and we got the local match that way. So thank you to all of you who helped us out with that. And hopefully we hear back from that one soon. Just wanted to provide a high-level overview over all of the grant applications that we've applied for and provided a brief update on them. Next, I wanted to talk to you about an opportunity that has been made available by the Environmental Protection Agency called the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program. As you see here on the side, those are some of the things that you can do with that grant, but I also want to just provide a little bit of information while you guys are reading. This opportunity, this program has 2 grant applications, a planning formula grant and a competitive implementation grant. The planning grant was set aside $250 million, and that 250 was split 4 ways. The first one, the big chunk, was $156 million that's being provided to the 50 states, the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico. The next one, which is really exciting, which we were really looking forward to announce today, is that it was $1 million is being set aside for each of the top 67 metropolitan statistical areas in the country. And the good news is that the McAllen Mission Edinburgh Metropolitan Statistical Area is ranked number 65. So that MSA, or the Metropolitan Statistical Area, is being allocated $1 million. Any regional organization can apply. So no decision needs to be made today, but we wanted just to come to the policy board just to see if someone else already either knew about the opportunity or is intending to apply. But the deadline is April 28th to submit a notice of intent to participate, and then the application deadline is in May, towards the end of May, if I'm correct. Something just to remind you guys on is that if no one in our metropolitan statistical area applies, the money will be reallocated to number 68 or number 69 on the list. I believe the next one would be New Haven in Connecticut. So we don't know who's applying, if someone already has plans, but in case no one knew about this opportunity, we just found out about it. We wanted to see if the policy board would so wish for us to be the lead agency. They are recommending for a regional cooperation. So just wanted to provide this opportunity, something for you guys to keep in mind. But the deadline to submit that notice is April 28th. So just provide a discussion item. Just know that there are 3 deliverables over the next 4 years. There is a priority climate action plan that they expect by March 2024, a climate action plan that they expect sometime in 2025, and then a update on both of them sometime in 2027. So just this planning grant is also meant to develop climate pollution reduction strategies overall in general. Obviously, greenhouse gases, transportation, we believe is very relevant. So that's why we wanted just to provide that update to you today and just hear feedback from the policy board, just in case someone else might already be applying or would like for us to be the lead agency on it. But obviously, it can be any regional agency. But yeah, we just wanted to hear back from you all here.
Who's included in that MSA?
That MSA is technically Hidalgo County. It's just called the McAllen Mission Edinburgh because they tend to select the 3 cities with the largest population in that area.
It's just, what would you say, Javi, is a safe deadline for us to find out from our partners if anyone is going to apply? So if not, then we could.
Well, the good thing is that for the notice of intent to participate, it is a very simple table. You just put a contact person and a sentence or 2 saying that you're going to be submitting a notice, that this is the notice of you. This is not an application. So it is already going to be like April, I don't know, just, I wouldn't say there's a hard deadline, but just before before April 28th, maybe by April 25th, that way we have a couple days just to make sure that we're prepared to submit that if the policy board so wishes that they want us to submit that application.
Do you have any thoughts on what you would be applying for in this? Is it like electrical charging stations, or what is it that you're looking at possibly doing?
So on our end, we are getting that Category 10 carbon reduction strategy, and we're going to be looking and seeing if we can flex some of that category to use on something like this. And some of the things that we can do with that is traffic signalization, electrification, and so kind of tying in those two, since we are already going to be getting an allocation of that money, and kind of piggybacking off of some of the strategies that they've identified in that category, and we can always make that available. The idea came because we found out that NCT COG, the MPO at NCT COG in Dallas-Fort Worth is applying as the lead agency for their region. So again, just an opportunity to let you all here know about it in case you wanted us to also do the same here.
Okay. Was that it?
Yep, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, if that concludes your presentation, any further questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Javier. Item number 5, Border Master Plan. It looks like we're going to pass on that
Yes, sir.
this meeting, so that'll be a no action.
Yes, sir.
Were we scheduled for executive session?
I was told so, yes, sir.
Okay, so at this point in time, it is now 2:17, and we're going to go into executive session for personnel matters pursuant to Section 551-074 to deliberate appointment, employment evaluation, reassignment duties, discipline, or All right, so it's 3:40 and we're going to reconvene into open session. We're going to kind of speed through these since we had to take some time in executive session. But item 6, Andrew, is there anything critical that you need to report on? No, sir. Okay, item 7, status reports. I trust that all of the status reports are in the package. Are there any comments or questions with respect to that? Or with respect to the TxDOT, Cameron County RMA, Hidalgo County RMA, transit report, anything that is hypersensitive or critical that needs to be said? Otherwise, the reports are in your package. If you have any follow-up, please reach out to the staff accordingly. Item 8, other business. Anything, Andrew?
I do have just two quick things. I know we've ran, just want to take the opportunity, all the cities are here. I wanted to invite all the cities for a ceremony we're having on April 20th at our Ebony Hills Golf Course. We're actually going to host the Vietnam Memorial Wall. There's a replica and it's coming here to the valley. It's going to be hosted there. And so all 150 that unfortunately lost their life right during Vietnam, their names are going to be there. And so there's someone there from each of your cities. So we're going to send out a notice to all of you, so I invite you all to go to that ceremony. It's the actual replica of the Vietnam memorial. So anyway, just wanted to mention that. Hope you guys can attend.
Make sure you send it to Manny and have him distribute it out to the,
It's on
to
April 20th
everybody
at
in the call.
10 a.m. We'll
So
have
if you
a
could share
ceremony.
that with your COG members, that would be fantastic. Anything else?
No.
Any other announcements or business? Manny?
Really quick, Commissioner, just wanted to, since I have elected officials in the room, Commissioner Garza, help me out. But we're going to be having our first somewhat COG retreat next month on the 23rd. We secured a grant for all 46 cities. We're going to pay for their hotel stay. And the following day, which is a Wednesday on the 24th of May, we're going to have a roundtable discussion all about regionalism, what's going on specifically about flooding. And so we'll be reaching out once we get those details ironed out. And so again, for elected officials, the night will be paid for, as well as the event. We'll have a lunch paid for the next day. So those details are coming up. So I greatly, hope that everybody can take advantage of that. Commissioner Garza?
It's gonna be at the island.
At the island? I was about to ask where.
The meetings will be held at the convention center. And what it is proposed and occurring is, there'll be like, we wanna call it a lightning session, which means that we're gonna have all the federal and state agencies that will be here already to provide an update and give us about a 15-minute presentation on each one. And you're gonna do one presentation too, Commissioner?
okay.
And this all happened yesterday, 15 minutes.
Okay.
I think everybody needs to kind of at least understand what we all are doing in our own municipalities in regards to these issues. Mayor, you too, so, but there's some major work going on that needs to be, something that everyone is aware of, There's a lot of stuff going on. And we all operate in silos, as we well know, and we want to make sure that we share this information with everyone. I think Jim Darling was the one that told us that if we paid for a night's worth of room at the island, everybody goes. So,
Good point.
So, and there'll be a reception the night before.
You had me at hello.
There'll be a reception on the night before in the evening, and then the next morning breakfast session, and a speaker and a luncheon.
Perfect. Looking forward to it. Any other announcements? Anything else we need to get out there?
We're good, Adjourn.
Otherwise, next meeting will be April 26, 1:30 here. Have a motion to adjourn? This meeting is adjourned. It's 3:44.